Hey guys, this is Richard at Big Number One Motorsports, and today I'm going to be talking about the BMW G310R. Now this bike is fantastic. It's not just for beginners, it's also a great practice bike for, practicing your technical skills because it's very forgiving, and by that same metric, it is fantastic for your first bike that you've ever had, or maybe the first one you ever owned, you've ridden before, but you're not confident in, riding a bike every day yet. I want to start on the front of the bike. You get a lot of stuff that, you don't really associate with beginner bikes a lot, and it's becoming more commonplace, which is awesome. For example, LED headlights, LED indicators. Those are both fantastic because they're very opaque light, very easy to see during the day, and they last a long time too, longer than your traditional bulbs. So that means, you're not going to be changing bulbs as often. You can worry about, learning to ride or getting better at riding for whatever reason you got this bike for. Also, on the front, you do get adjustable levers, which is fantastic. You don't see that a lot on beginner bikes or smaller bikes, which means, as you get more comfortable with riding, you can adjust those to be right where you want to be for the type of riding that you're going to do, and really experience different ways of having those levers set up, which is going to help you really know how it's going to affect you in the future. As you get on different bikes, you'll be ready for any kind of friction point on the clutch or any kind of engagement point on the brakes, which is fantastic. You also get inverted forks on this bike, which it's not only more lightweight than classic forks on the front wheel to give you more light steering, it's also going to lend you more rigidity to your suspension in the front, which is great because, say you're not used to braking and you grab a handful of brake, it's not going to compress super hard, not going to buck, really kind of trying to throw you off or anything like that, so it's very safe and super reliable. You're starting to see that more and more on these bikes. Coming around the side of the bike, I want to talk about the engine a little bit. It's a single cylinder, 34 horsepower, about 20.9 pound-feet of torque on this one, which is fantastic for beginners. You got a ride-by-wire system, which means it's going to react very smoothly to your inputs. And this engine, having ridden this bike, is very kind, especially if, like I said, you are beginning to ride or really get your feet underneath you while you ride. When I say forgiving, I mean, it's not going to buck you off, or it's less likely to buck you off when, you grab too much throttle, and it's great to learn on. It's more forgiving to the mistakes that you're more likely to make as a new rider. I also want to talk about the seating position on here. Your feet are more underneath you on this one. It's more of a standard seating position, which means you can sit up straight, and it lends really an air of confidence to your riding, especially if you're inexperienced, your feet are right underneath you, you can put them down quickly if you have to. Moving around to the back of the bike, you also have LEDs back here, tail lights and indicators. Again, super easy to see during the daytime and long lasting. Going to save you money on maintenance, and also they just look better in my opinion. Now this bike only weighs about 360 pounds, which is fantastic. Because if you're inexperienced, or even if you're just riding around town and you're coming to a lot of stoplights, you're really not going to want to hold up all that weight all the time. So having a lightweight bike like this is fantastic, especially for the around town riding, which is what this bike is really great at. You can also hit the interstate. You're going to top out around 90 miles an hour on this bike, but it's really made for those around town or local rides where you're really getting your footing underneath you. Lastly, I want to talk about another feature that's really going to make this bike more accessible to all riders, and that's going to be the seat height. So you got about 30.9 inches seat height on this one. Really super easy to fit on this bike. As you saw, I can flat foot it pretty well. I'm about 5'10", and which means that a lot of riders are going to be able to. There's also a low seat that you can buy if you need it, or a high seat as accessories that you can buy for them. So it's really customizable to give you the most comfortable ride that you're going to want as you learn your skills. Anyway guys, this has been Richard at Big Number One Motorsports. I hope this was informative for you, and if you want to hear some more, come on in and I'll be happy to tell you in person.